In this lesson, we'll learn how we can work with the channel box and the layer editor inside of Maya. Okay, so we're going to open up a scene file to start with. So let's go to Open and take a look inside your scenes directory for this project, and we're going to open up the lesson file for 08. Alright, so we have this simple object with a couple of simple scenes, and we'll use this as a way of showing off the channel box and the layer editor. Now, the channel box and the layer editor can be accessed in a couple of different ways. One is to just simply go over to this set of tabs over here on the right-hand side of your interface and click on this channel box layer editor until this pops up. Another option is to press Control-A on your keyboard until we get to this channel box and the layer editor, which is down here. So let's start with this top area up here, the channel box. So this is the primary area where we can see any translation, any rotational values, or any scale resizing values that have been applied to any of our selected object. We can also see what our object is named. And if we double click on this, we can actually change the name of our object from this little area right up here. So this becomes really useful if we need to see exactly maybe where in our 3D space some kind of an object has been positioned. We can also come in here and start to manually set the positions if we want to. So if we have an object that we need to be exactly 10 units over in the z-axis or the x-axis, let's say, we can type in a value of 10, hit enter, and there we go. You can see this object has now been moved 10 units over. If we go and set that back to 0, you can see we're right back at our original value. Same goes for rotation. If we have an object that we know needs to be rotated exactly, let's say 90 degrees or 45 degrees in this z-axis, then we can just type in a rotation value of 45 degrees, and now that object has been rotated accordingly. So again, really nice features that we have here. Another thing that is sort of nice is when it comes to working with and changing these values here in this channel box, we can actually do this in a little bit more interactive way. So instead of maybe grabbing our move tool and picking up our object and moving it up and down in the y-axis, which we can do, and you can see as I start to move this object up and down that its translate y is changing. So again, if I need to get that back to its original position, I can just type in 0, and there's that object placed back at its original point. Now what we can also do is, as I said, interactively change these values. So if I come in and just simply click to select this translate y, now move my cursor over into this empty space somewhere, and now middle click and drag from side to side. Okay, and you can see as I start to drag either from side to side or up and down, you can see we're interactively changing whatever value we have selected. So we can actually do this for a few different values simultaneously. So if I grab, let's say, scale X, Y, and Z, and middle click and drag all at the same time, you can see I'm adjusting both these. If we want, we can control click and drag, or control click to grab, let's say, maybe just 2 of these axes. And again, just come in here and middle click. In that case, it's only adjusting the last one that we had selected. So this channel box area is really pretty simple and pretty self-explanatory. Now this other area that we have to talk about is the layers editor. So this is where we can start to create what are called display layers, and this becomes really useful as we start to have more objects in our scene, and our scene starts to require just a little bit more management. So let's say I have an object in my scene and I no longer want this to be visible, or I for whatever reason don't want to be able to select this. We can accomplish a lot of these tasks through this layer editor. So when it comes to assigning objects or making layers, this can be done in a couple of different ways. One method is to just start with any object selected that you want to be assigned to a layer, and then click on this little icon right here, which is going to create a new layer out of any selected objects. So if I click on that, you can see now a new layer has been created. And we can click on this and rename this anything we want. We can call this something like orange cage layer. There we are. And one of the things you'll notice now is if I select an object and take a look over at its inputs over here in the channel box, you can see we have this orange cage layer, which means that it is currently assigned to this layer. Okay, so within this layer, we can do things like, again, turn visibility on or off for any objects assigned to those layers. So that becomes really easy to do. We can also start to change the selectability of an object. So right now this is set to, if we click on this little icon next to the visibility, this switches to a T, which T stands for template, which basically sets it to sort of this see-through wireframe. And in addition to being kind of this clear see-through wireframe, we actually can't select this piece of geometry anymore, or anything that happens to be assigned to this layer. So if we click on this once again, you can see now this little icon switches to an R. An R stands for reference. So with a reference, you can see we have kind of this shaded appearance, but like before, we can't actually come in and select this. So this becomes really nice for having objects that in our scene that we don't want to be able to mess with and don't want to have accidentally moved or manipulated or adjusted in any way. We can set that to either a reference or a template and know that we can't make any sort of adjustments or grab those accidentally. If we click on this once again, you can see that goes blank, which means it's now just treated as a normal object, and now we can come in and grab that and work with it as normal. If we wanted to take any additional objects and either add or remove those from an existing layer, let's say I wanted to take this orange tube and actually have this be part of this orange cage layer as well. So what I could do is select this piece of geometry, then right click on the layer, and let's say we add selected objects to that layer. And again, now you can see if I select this orange tube geometry, take a look inside the inputs, you can see this orange cage layer, again, signifying that this piece of geometry is connected to this display layer. And again, if I turn on visibility, now you can see it affects both of these objects. If I have something in my scene that I want to be removed from a display layer, it's pretty much the exact same process. Just select a piece of geometry, right click, and tell Maya to remove the selected objects from that display layer. And now you can see as I change the visibility, it does affect this orange tube, but because I've taken this cage out of that display layer, it no longer has any effect. If at any point you're ever unsure about what exactly is contained on a display layer, a really useful feature is the fact that we can right-click on any display layer and tell Maya to select any objects that are currently assigned. And you can see in this case it only selects this piece of orange tube geometry. But again, if I took this cage, right-click, add selected objects, and then once again just right-click on that layer and select any objects that are assigned to that layer, you can see it now selects both of these. Okay, so again, really nice for organizational purposes. One last thing that we do have as far as these display layers are concerned is the ability to change the wireframe color of any objects that are assigned. So this will be easier to see if I press the 4 key on my keyboard to jump to a wireframe view. So this wireframe color is going to be this little box with this line through it. That signifies that it's really using the default wireframe color at this point. But if I click on that, we can come in and get back to this area where we can start to change the layer name. And this is where we can start to define the wireframe color. So if I wanted these to be noticeably different from anything else in my scene, I could set this to something really drastically different. Let's say maybe something like this kind of a yellowish color. Hit save, and now you can see the wireframe of both of these objects will turn yellow. Now if I take, let's say, another piece of geometry, or these guys over here, again with these selected, I'll make a new display layer, double click on that, and we'll call this green objects layer. Whenever you're typing anything in Maya, Maya will not allow you to have spaces, so you can use underscores, or you can use just capitalizations to signify where one word stops and the next word begins. So save that, and again, just to signify this, we'll maybe change the wireframe color to something different. Let's go with something maybe like sort of this red color. Again, save that. And now you can see the objects that are assigned to this display layer turn on this kind of a red wireframe color. Again, it can be good for organizational purposes if you want to make sure you are identifying the difference between certain objects in your scene, or this can also be useful for instantly telling exactly which objects are assigned to a certain display layer, sort of an alternative of right-clicking and using this Select Objects workflow. Okay, so that's a look at how we can start to take advantage of this channel box, as well as the layer editor inside of Maya.